Compass Mining is your trusted partner in Bitcoin mining. Whether you're investing in one machine or thousands, our customizable solutions are tailored to meet your needs. We are your experts in Bitcoin mining, offering a platform where individuals and businesses can purchase hardware, host machines, and access a range of ancillary Bitcoin mining services. We also specialize in large-scale site development and data center operations. Discover more at compassmining.io and see how we can power your success today. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel McNallie Money, the official home of power mining analysis. Another green day in the markets, at least for the Bitcoin mining stocks. We're going to be talking about that in addition to some emerging trends we're seeing in the Bitcoin space or sector and some news from Bitdeer Technologies Group. A lot to talk about. Before we get into it, take a second, smash the like button, guys. Big help to myself and the channel. If you're not already subscribed, McNallie Money, feel free to join. And with that being said, let's get into today's video. All right, guys. So as I said in the intro, day 3 of green in the Bitcoin mining space, all but one miner in the green as of the time we prepared this podcast today, Anthony. Bitcoin itself in the neighborhood of $93,500. Really a strong week and showing support or holding up in that low 90s range.
Yes, it's been a good week, and Bitcoin price is really stabilizing in that sort of 93, 94,000 mode, and having dropped to 76,000 a few weeks ago, there was question marks as to whether it could recover, but it's recovered well. And we've covered a number of podcasts, so we won't dwell on it too much, but we're happy where it is today, and we just hope we see another push upwards in the not too distant future.
Yeah, we certainly do. Now, on to the miners themselves. I mentioned all but one in the green. Marathon 1 cent in the red at the time this was taken, Anthony. But a lot of strong contenders up top. Some of the smaller miners, you see Gryphon, Soluna, but really the sector or segment as a whole having a great week.
Yeah, and interesting enough today, if you look at the column next to the average volume for 3 months, look at the day range and look at where the prices are at the moment. They're all sort of towards the high of the day. So that's what we've noticed before, and we changed the timing of the podcast because we used to do it sort of like maybe half an hour after market open, and we do a great podcast. It was all green. By the time the podcast was over, everything was red. So we've decided to sort of like put it back a few hours, and just to get a feel of the market, give the market chance to settle down with the buying and selling of shares as the market opens. Some people can't access pre-market hours, so they have to rely on when the market opens to do their trades. And it looks quite a good picture today in that most of the shares are fairly close to their day highs. So that's a positive sign. And like you say, Gryphon and Soluna, two of the smaller miners that we've covered over the past 12 months, really showing the way to go today. But most of the miners are in the green, and they have been significantly in the green over this last 4 or 5 days. We've started to see some recovery from the fact, many of the miners on the sheet here are still, I think yesterday it was like 39% still down. So, still got a long way to go to get back to where they were at the beginning of January.
Yeah, we'll call it a recovery instead of a rally, and maybe we'll get a little less heat in the comment section. It's interesting you bring up the daily range, though, Anthony. I put a tweet out about this a few days ago, talking about the miners trading in the top part of their daily range, but the low part of their 52-week range. Really a nice contrast or inverse relationship there, potentially showing that the bottom is in, as we talked about on the channel a few weeks ago, and we may start to see a sustained recovery. Now, part of the reason for that sustained recovery, at least in the price of Bitcoin, is the ETF inflows. So yet again, we've seen another day in excess of $900 million of fresh capital. This is net ETF inflows, again, supporting that snowball thesis we talked about earlier in the week.
Yeah, this is incredible. So, we're only into the start of Thursday. We've already seen 2.2 billion of inflows this week already, which is much needed, and that's helped the Bitcoin price get to where it is. We've seen that rally over the weekend. through Monday and, stabilize today around that sort of 93,000, 94,000 level. But this is part of the reasoning for that. There's money flowing back into the ETFs. The ETFs are having to go out there and buy Bitcoin. That's all they can do. There's no other asset class that can keep up with the Bitcoin price. And so therefore, you have to have, these ETFs buy Bitcoin to back effectively that investment. So yeah, great couple of days there, and let's hope it continues. I mean, bear in mind we were having these conversations in 2024, and literally every day was green in 2024. Very few red days. We've seen a lot more red days in 2025, but that's only because of the turmoil of the macroeconomics out there, which we've covered quite a lot in previous podcasts. But we're focusing on the week we are at the moment, and 2.2 billion inflows this week is a really good positive news story.
It certainly is. So a lot of money flowing into Bitcoin and a lot of money flowing into the global economy as well. You can see the global M2 money supply again hitting highs here, Anthony, with Bitcoin closely following. These two are highly correlated. The thesis here, you guys, is more fiat currency. The relative value goes down versus Bitcoin. That's why they say everything goes to zero versus Bitcoin. But as these countries start to turn on the money printers and inject more fiat liquidity into the economy, obviously supporting the price of Bitcoin. Now, speaking of investment, Anthony, another interesting angle here. We've talked about Bitdeer on the channel recently as it relates to their vertical integration strategy, the Seal Miner platform. We're starting to see images now about the first pallets of the Seal Miner heading out the door, going to start their hashing journey. We've also seen articles from Bitdeer and Jeff LaBerge recently talking about their vertical integration and the ability of Bitdeer to basically skirt some of these tariff concerns by using their own seal miners in their own facilities around the globe. We were very excited about this. We were very, very bullish. It appears Tether may be bullish as well. They've started investing or acquiring quite a number of shares in Bitdeer Technologies Group.
Yeah, absolutely. And think about the Bitdeer share price, where it's been over certain last few months. It's dropped significantly, and that hasn't deterred Tether, who already had a sizable amount of shares in the company, having purchased a lot through a substantial raise last year in a private raise, for Tether only. Now, with this downturn in the Bitcoin mining sector, Tether's increased its investment in Bitdeer between April the 2nd and April the 14th by a further 4 million Bitdeer shares, and they paid an average of about $8.05. So they've spent $32 million. And this moves their ownership up closer towards that 25% stake in the company, higher than it was in March, was around about the 21, just over 21%. Now, obviously, that decline has helped that, and Tether obviously believe, with all the news stories and the plans that Bitdeer have been communicating out with regards to its enormous amount of power pipeline, the fact it's producing its own machines, already got the A2 in production, already looking at the A3 going to production soon, the end of the year, and then to focus on the A4, which will be a mind-blowing 5 joules a terahash. So when you think about all this, it takes a lot of capital to do this, and Bitdeer, maybe haven't had the advantages that the likes of Riot and Marathon had, by entering the Nasdaq years ago and being an American-based miner, getting that American funding coming through. So they've had to look at what levers they can utilize over that period, and to help them expand their mining capabilities, the company have secured a loan agreement with Matrixport for up to 200 million. Now, Matrixport is a sort of financial company owned by Jihan Wu, who happens to be the chairman of Bitdeer, and so basically they've that company is able to give a loan to Bitdeer to help fund its capital requirements as we move forward. They've already drawn 43 million of that 200 million as at the April the 21st. On top of that, they've raised a further nearly $119 million through the issuance of 6 million Class A shares earlier this year. And so these two capital raises have sort of, boosted Bitdeer's position, in the competitive Bitcoin mining hardware market. And, it's a really challenging market. I mean, you think about the players at the moment, you've got the likes of Bitmain, you've got the likes of MicroBT and the likes of Canard. These are the three standard suppliers. And then you've got the likes of Bitdeer, you've got the likes of Auradine, you've got the likes of Block, and there's a few others coming into the market, trying to take some of that market away from the three big players. Now, when we say three big players, it's one big players and two others, because Bitmain, at the last time I looked, had probably about 80% of the whole market, and they're not willing to give that up without some sort of a challenge. But Bitdeer are just going around this, in their own way. They're producing these, the latest editions of their mining machines, and they're getting the efficiency right, and they're producing exactly what they said they did. And bear in mind, this news only came out last year. We covered it with Harris and Jeff on the podcast. And it was more of a sort of like, this is what we're planning to do, but this is now reality. We're actually seeing these machines, and we're hoping that sometime in the future we'll be able to see this even closer up. And we'll tell you more about that plan if it comes into fruition as soon as it happens. But a big news updates this week. Bitdeer issued its financial reports, and within there was a lot of information about the Tether acquisition, and also about the loans that it's taken on there. So, and remember, last year they also took on some significant loans, convertible loans, as well. So they are starting to build up, a bit of a debt position there, which they're all interest bearing. I think the Matrix loan there is, I think it's like 9% rate plus an additional amount of the market rate as well on top of that. So that could be, low double digits in terms of interest rate. So you have to obviously make good on those interest payments. But if you're producing the levels of machines that Bitdeer want to produce, and you're able to produce them effectively quite cheap and make a margin through selling them, then obviously they'll recover that money to pay those payments and some more going forward.
Compass Mining makes Bitcoin mining accessible to everyone. Start mining in as little as 48 hours with our turnkey hardware, online and mining directly to your Bitcoin wallet within 2 business days. Find out more at compassmining.io and get started now. Yeah, most definitely. And another great example of how these companies are getting innovative or creative with the financing options. Now, speaking of the Tether portion of that announcement, Anthony, we heard about Tether earlier in the week. Obviously, their big announcement was SoftBank and Jack Mallers, the launch of 21, so this Bitcoin-focused company. We took a look at exactly what Tether does. They have a substantial amount of Bitcoin, over 100,000 Bitcoin on their balance sheet. Obviously, a coin related to Tether. Essentially, they make money through interest earned on those substantial reserves I just mentioned, not only Bitcoin, but other investments like Bitdeer Technologies Group, transaction fees for minting, redeeming, transferring USDT tokens, and strategic investments in various assets like we just walked through. So a very robust company here. We talked about Jack Mallers being the CEO of this new 21. I've watched some interviews and discussion with Jack last night. He is very excited about the opportunity, aiming to be the ultimate vehicle for capital markets to access Bitcoin. Talked about the fact that they don't have any distractions or underlying businesses like MicroStrategy, for example. Some of these miners, they're 100% focused on Bitcoin acquisition, Bitcoin accretive moves on a per share basis. And as we talked about in yesterday's podcast, when we asked Grok about the funding requirements for these 42,000 initial coins, you can see Tether again listed as contributing $1.5 billion in Bitcoin, assumed that that will be coming out of their 100,521 Bitcoin reserve as of the 31st of March. So Tether, similar to 21, we're starting to see a lot of companies coming into this Bitcoin ecosystem, Bitcoin financial system space, Anthony, getting very interesting kind of on a more macro level here.
Yeah, arguably, if you listen to what you just said about Tether, it looks like they're effectively like a bank in the Bitcoin space, to be honest with you. They're doing everything that sort of a bank would do in helping other participants. And actually, thinking out loud as well, Galaxy do some of those things as well. So Galaxy, although they do mining, it's a very small part of the business, but they also do quite a considerable amount of the things that you just articulated for Tether there. So maybe that's the way forward for some of these institutions to make some money by helping others to get to where they need to get to.
Well, you're exactly right. And Coinbase as well, Anthony. We've seen a lot of similar moves, Bitcoin backed loans from Coinbase. We covered that in relation to Riot Platforms. So you're right. A lot of companies almost looking to get in on the frontier of this new banking phenomenon. We're seeing one of the pioneers, most definitely in this space, Michael Saylor's strategy. He's saying, hey, hold on a second here, guys. I'm not letting Jack Mallers or anyone else come in and take my throne as the top Bitcoin company in the world. He went on an interview stating he may look to acquire up to 5-10% of total Bitcoin ever created. Really a dynamic situation here. As we've talked about, Anthony, a lot of the Bitcoin on exchange hasn't moved in years and years. There's so many people now looking to acquire Bitcoin, and on a large scale, 42,000 Bitcoin is massive. Strategy over a 500,000 coins now. Really talk about supply and demand. There just isn't enough to go around.
Yeah, and you mentioned, the 42,000 that 21 are trying to achieve. That pales into comparison with the 538,000 that Michael Saylor holds in his treasury. Now that represents, in my simple maths, probably about 2.5% of the total Bitcoin that's ever going to be produced. So for him to say today, aiming to get to 5 to 10%, 10% is going to be a real challenge, in that, there's not a lot of Bitcoin leaving exchanges. And so therefore, where is he going to buy it from? I mean, if the price gets significantly high, is he going to be able to, get people to sell their hard kept Bitcoin? That's going to be the challenge. I mean, but he's put out a strategy there. He's never fallen away from that. In the 4.5 years he's been buying Bitcoin, he's continued to buy Bitcoin, not at the lows, but literally at the highs as well. So, he's been fairly busy this year when Bitcoin was rallying over 109,000. Never afraid to buy Bitcoin at any price, because he said it's just a matter of time before there'll be a new high. And so at the moment, he's got a significant amount of Bitcoin. The largest public company with Bitcoin in its treasury. Not many other organizations have got. Maybe one of the ETF, BlackRock, in terms of an ETF's got more, and Satoshi. But after that, really, Michael Saylor's probably head and shoulders above everyone else. And if you look at the table that we're going to show you next of all the holdings by the public company, you can see that strategy, have literally got, more than 10 times than the second company named on that sheet, which is Marathon Digital. They've got, just under 48,000. So maybe even 12 times the amount of Marathon Digital. And strategy just continues to buy week after week. But Marathon Digital have grown their stack quite considerable over the last couple of years. They've been buying Bitcoin, trying to follow that strategy as well, and let's see if it works out for them.
Yeah, it's a nice visual here from HODL 15 showing the update. The other thing I was going to say, you talk about the delta between first and second place, Anthony. Two observations. Only arrows I see on here are green, indicating none of these companies are selling or getting rid of Bitcoin. They're only adding. You also see a large number of miners on this list, which really supports the thesis on this channel that the miners are an integral part of the Bitcoin ecosystem. The final point I wanted to make just on the investment side of things is the amount of excitement from the investment community. So Bitcoin Mining Stock Guy posted an image here. Cantor Equity Partners, ticker symbol CEP. This is the trading vehicle that they're essentially using, merging with to take 21 public. Jack Mallers talking about this ticker symbol in one of those interviews. You can see it's up 214% in the past week. So there's definitely an appetite from Wall Street, from retail institutional investors to get exposure to Bitcoin. And around here, we think the miners are obviously a great way to do that. So speaking of Bitcoin, we also wanted to bring up Metaplanet, Anthony. I know we looked at the HODL 15 table. It seems he can't even keep that updated fast enough. Metaplanet now coming out, adding even more Bitcoin to their HODL.
Yeah, they come out and announced, the purchase of another 145 Bitcoin. That takes their total to a nice 5,000 Bitcoin. And it's been done in a very, very short space of time. I mean, Dylan Leclerc's been in the company maybe about a year. I've met Dylan a few times at a few of the conferences, always a very good speaker and well worth the time that he spends educating people in the space about not just Bitcoin, but about all the attributes that Bitcoin can be used for. So, I always manage to, to have a quiet word with him when we go to these conferences, but I'll always be in the audience listening to his intentions there, because it's well worth the time to listen to him.
Worth the price of admission. Yeah, he's up there with Jack Mallers and Michael Saylor in terms of influential voices in the space. So there you have it, you guys. Another strong day for Bitcoin, Bitcoin miners, and the Bitcoin adoption or ecosystem in general, as we're seeing more and more large companies getting into this Bitcoin banking space almost, Anthony, that we talked about during the podcast. So let us know your thoughts in the comment section below, you guys. Feel free to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. We'll see you back here soon.